The blind man signing the will tomorrow. After that, we own everything.
Girl, you're wicked.
He heard the laughter before he saw the betrayal. From the upstairs hallway of his own mansion, Richard Montgomery stood frozen, his cane trembling in his hand, his dark glasses hiding more than his secret. Down below, his fiancée Vanessa whispered to her friend, laughing about how the blind man would soon sign every penny her way. He swallowed hard. Every sound, every word, burned into him like fire. But this was exactly what he needed to hear. 3 days earlier, he'd faked the fall from his horse, pretending to lose his sight, all to test the woman who promised she'd love him forever. But love was the last thing in her eyes. And just when darkness seemed permanent, a gentle voice came into his world. Sophia Reyes, the new housekeeper, whose kindness would soon uncover a truth far deadlier than Richard's lie. And that's where her story truly began. Before we dive deeper, please, if you're listening to this right now, I want to prove my mom wrong. She said I can't even reach 1,000 subscribers. Help me show her that stories like this matter. Subscribe to King's Folklore, and let's keep breathing life into tales that refuse to die. Now let's continue. The morning sun poured gently over the Montgomery Ranch, golden light stretching across acres of quiet land. To everyone in town, Richard Montgomery was the man who had it all. Wealth, power, and the kind of charm that could make a crowd fall silent when he spoke. But what most didn't know was that Richard was a man haunted not by ghosts but by doubt. Vanessa Hail had entered his life a year earlier, beautiful, polished, and perfect in every social sense. She said all the right things, smiled in all the right moments. But lately, Richard had begun to wonder if her eyes ever truly saw him, or just the money, the mansion, and the name, Montgomery. Then came the day on the ranch when his horse, Thunder, bolted. Or at least, that's how it looked. Thunder didn't bolt. Richard planned it. A quick tumble, a faint groan, and by nightfall, the rumor had spread. The billionaire rancher had gone blind. He sat quietly in the hospital bed, pretending not to see the way Vanessa's face tightened, not in worry, but in irritation. "Richard, what am I supposed to do now?" she asked, her tone cold enough to frost glass. He smiled faintly. "Just stay by my side. That's all I ask." She hesitated before nodding. "Of course, darling." But that small pause said everything. Over the next few days, Richard noticed things he'd never seen before. The silence between them grew heavier. She stopped visiting his son Gavin in the evenings, leaving the boys' dinner untouched on the tray. The maids whispered that Vanessa barely spoke to anyone, unless she needed something. One night, Richard sat alone in the study, pretending to be asleep when Vanessa entered. Her voice, sharp and low, carried through the room. 3 months. That's all I'm giving this blindness thing. If he doesn't recover, I'm gone. I didn't sign up to play nurse. Her friend Patricia laughed from the phone speaker. "Girl, you're not serious." "Oh, I am. You think I'm spending my life wiping after a blind man? Please. I'll get the wedding done, lock in my name, and we're gone." Richard's hand trembled. His cane slipped from his grasp, hitting the floor with a soft thud. Vanessa froze, then chuckled nervously. "Oh, you're awake?" He forced a tired smile. "No, just dropped something." But inside, his heart was breaking. Later that night, he sat by Gavin's room, listening to his son's quiet breathing. The little boy's wheelchair stood by the window, the moonlight glinting off its metal rim. Richard whispered under his breath, "I won't let anyone hurt you again, son. Not again." The next morning, Vanessa brought breakfast. Her voice was fake sweet. "Here you go, darling, eggs, toast, and your favorite coffee." She placed the tray down, then turned to leave, not realizing Richard's sightless eyes were following her every step. "Vanessa," he said softly, "have you talked to Gavin today?" She sighed. "Richard, I have a million things to handle: decorators, caterers, wedding plans." "The boys ate," he interrupted quietly. "He just wanted to show you the picture he drew." "I'll look at it later," she snapped. "Besides, you spoil him too much. The child needs discipline." Richard clenched his jaw but said nothing. In that silence, something inside him shifted, love turning to quiet disgust. That evening, Dr. Harris stopped by. "You sure about this plan, Rich?" he asked, his voice low. Richard nodded. "Every day she shows me who she really is. But I need her to believe I'm blind a little longer. What about the kid? I'll keep him safe. Always." Then Dr. Harris mentioned something that would change everything. "Your housekeeper quit this morning. Said she couldn't take Vanessa's temper." Richard sighed. "Hire someone new. Someone gentle. Gavin needs that." And just like that, destiny shifted. Because the next morning, a small blue car pulled into the ranch driveway, and from it stepped a young woman named Sophia Reyes. Her hair was tied back, her clothes simple, her eyes full of quiet determination. She walked up to the door, clutching a worn folder of references, unaware that she was walking straight into a storm, and that her kindness would soon unravel every secret hidden inside the Montgomery mansion. What would you do if you discovered the person you love was just pretending, waiting for you to fail the test? Sophia Reyes arrived at the Montgomery Ranch on a cool Tuesday morning, carrying nothing but a faded handbag and quiet faith. The mansion loomed over the golden fields like a palace made of secrets. She hesitated for a moment before knocking on the large oak doors, whispering under her breath, "Lord, please, just let this be a good place." The door opened, and there stood Vanessa, flawless, poised, and already annoyed. "You're the new maid?" she asked flatly. "Yes, ma'am," Sophia replied softly. "Sophia Reyes." Vanessa's eyes swept over her modest dress, then she scoffed. "Fine. The kitchen's that way. Try not to break anything." Sophia nodded politely, not realizing that the man sitting quietly by the window, the one with the dark glasses and steady hands, was watching her closer than anyone ever had. That man was Richard Montgomery. From the first moment Sophia entered the room, something shifted in the air. Her voice carried warmth that filled the silence Vanessa left behind. She didn't tiptoe around Richard's blindness. She simply treated him normal. "Mr. Montgomery, do you prefer your coffee black or with cream?" she asked. "Black," he said, smiling faintly. "Good," she replied with a small grin. "It's the only right way to drink it." He chuckled softly the first time in days. Over the next few mornings, Sophia's presence began to change everything. She noticed how Gavin's tray was often left untouched, so she started joining him for breakfast. "You know," she said, stirring his oatmeal, "this looks better with a little cinnamon." The boy's face lit up. "No one's ever added that before." "Then they've been doing it wrong," she teased, handing him the spoon. Within a week, laughter returned to the ranch, faint, but real. Gavin would draw pictures again. Richard could hear them from his study. The sound of crayons, small giggles. Sophia reading stories in that gentle voice that made even pain sound like poetry. Vanessa noticed, and she didn't like it. One morning, Vanessa walked in to find Sophia helping Gavin with his schoolwork. "Is this what I'm paying you for?" she snapped. Sophia stood slowly. "I just thought—" "You thought wrong," Vanessa cut in sharply. "This is not a daycare." Richard, sitting quietly nearby, turned his head slightly. "She's helping my son learn, Vanessa. That's worth more than any paycheck." Vanessa smiled through gritted teeth. "Of course, darling. Whatever you say." That night, Vanessa vented to Patricia over the phone. "That little maid is getting too comfortable. Richard likes her. I can feel it." Patricia chuckled. "Then, make her uncomfortable. Remind her who runs that house." Vanessa's lips curled. "Oh, I plan to." The next morning, Sophia found the kitchen in chaos. Broken dishes, missing groceries, and Vanessa standing in the doorway holding a silver necklace. "Care to explain why this was in the pantry?" Vanessa hissed. Sophia blinked in confusion. "Ma'am, I've never—" "Save it. One more mistake like this and you're out." Richard listened quietly from the hall, his expression unreadable. Later that night, he spoke to Dr. Harris over the phone. "She's setting her up," he said calmly. "I can feel it." Dr. Harris replied, "You think she suspects you can see?" "Not yet. But she's getting reckless." Meanwhile, Sophia's bond with Gavin deepened. She told him bedtime stories about her life, about her sick mother back in Oklahoma, about how she prayed every night for strength. Gavin, wide-eyed, whispered, "You remind me of my mom." Tears filled her eyes. "That's the sweetest thing anyone's ever said to me." The next morning, a small accident changed everything. Gavin tried to reach for a photo frame on a high shelf, lost his balance, and fell from his wheelchair. His cry echoed through the hall. Vanessa walked past without a glance. "Get the maid. I'm not touching that child." Sophia rushed in, kneeling beside him. "You're okay, baby. You're okay. I've got you." She lifted him gently, cleaned his scraped knee, and held him until he stopped shaking. Richard, standing silently by the doorway, clenched his fists. Behind the glasses, his eyes glistened not from pain, but from confirmation. He'd seen everything he needed to see. That night, while the house slept, Richard stood by the window, removing his dark glasses. His reflection stared back sharp, awake, alive. He whispered, "Thank you, God, for showing me the truth. But give me the strength for what comes next." Because he knew Vanessa wasn't done. And what came next would shake the entire Montgomery Ranch. What would you do if the only person who showed you real love was someone you were never supposed to notice? Night fell heavy over the Montgomery Ranch. The moonlight spilled through the long hallway windows, cutting across the wooden floors like pale rivers of truth. In the stillness, every secret waited to be uncovered. Richard sat by the fireplace, cane resting by his chair, dark glasses on though he no longer needed them. His heart was calm now, his mind sharp as ever. He had seen enough of Vanessa's cruelty and deceit. Tonight, the game would end. Earlier that day, Vanessa had made her final move. With Patricia's help, she'd planted a velvet pouch filled with stolen jewelry inside Sophia's room, the same necklace Vanessa had accused her of misplacing before. Then she called the sheriff's office, pretending to be the helpless victim of a robbery. When Sheriff Dalton arrived, Sophia's hands trembled. "Sir, I swear, I've never seen that necklace in my life." Vanessa crossed her arms, feigning heartbreak. "I trusted you, Sophia. My fiancé trusted you." Sophia turned desperately toward Richard. "Please, Mr. Montgomery. You have to believe me." Richard said nothing, only a slow breath. Then he turned to Sheriff Dalton and nodded. "Search the ranch, every room, every camera." Vanessa's eyes widened. "There are no cameras in this house." Richard smiled faintly. "There are now." For the first time, Vanessa's mask cracked. Patricia shifted nervously beside her. "You didn't tell me about cameras." "Shut up," Vanessa hissed. Dr. Harris stepped in, holding a small flash drive. "We installed them last week per Richard's request. He wanted to ensure Gavin's safety." The sheriff plugged it into his laptop, and soon, the living room filled with the grainy but undeniable footage, Vanessa slipping into Sophia's room, Patricia keeping watch by the door. Sophia covered her mouth, tears spilling freely. Vanessa froze, the color draining from her face. That's not me." But the video didn't lie. Richard stood slowly, removing his glasses. The moment his eyes met Vanessa's, she stumbled backward. You can see?" she whispered. He stepped closer, voice calm but heavy with disappointment. "I could always see. Every lie, every cruelty. Every time you walked past my son as if he didn't exist." Vanessa's lips trembled. "You tricked me." "No," he said quietly. "You revealed yourself." The sheriff moved forward. "Vanessa Hail, Patricia Collins, you're both under arrest for conspiracy, falsifying evidence, and harassment." Patricia began to cry. "Vanessa, I told you this would go too far." Vanessa's fury erupted. "Shut up, you coward." She lunged toward Sophia, but Sheriff Dalton stepped in, grabbing her arms. As the handcuffs clicked shut, Richard spoke once more, not in anger, but with finality. "You could have had a home, Vanessa. You could have been family, but you chose greed. And now, you've lost everything." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears of rage. "You'll regret this, Richard. You'll regret loving that maid." He turned to Sophia, who stood quietly by the wall, her face pale but strong. "No," he said softly. "For the first time in years, I don't regret anything." The sheriff led Vanessa and Patricia out into the night, their voices fading into the hum of the distant wind. Inside, silence lingered, the peaceful kind that follows a storm. Gavin rolled into the room in his wheelchair, eyes wide. "Is it over, Dad?" Richard smiled, kneeling beside him. "Yeah, son, it's over." Sophia knelt, hugging Gavin gently. "You're safe now." The boy smiled shyly. "Can we still make pancakes tomorrow?" Sophia laughed through her tears. "Of course we can." Weeks passed, and the ranch began to heal. The laughter returned brighter this time, honest. Sophia stayed on, not as a maid, but as family. Richard often found her reading on the porch, sunlight in her hair, Gavin asleep on her lap. One evening, Richard approached her, holding a small velvet box. "Richard," she whispered, eyes wide. He smiled. "Sophia, you brought light into this house when I was pretending to live in darkness. Will you stay not as an employee, but as my partner, my wife?" Her tears fell before her words did. "Yes," she whispered, 1,000 times yes. And so, beneath the wide Texas sky, the Montgomery Ranch found new life. The wedding was small but perfect. Gavin the ring bearer, his wheelchair decorated with white roses. As the vows ended, Gavin looked up at his new family and whispered, "Now, I have a mom again." Sophia hugged him tight, and Richard, watching them, finally felt peace. The same man who once faked blindness had learned to see again, truly see the kind of love that money could never buy. And as the camera fades on their laughter, the narrator's voice closes softly. Sometimes, the only way to see people clearly is to watch them in the dark. When the storm finally passed, peace settled over the Montgomery Ranch like morning dew on the fields. What began as a test of deceit became a lesson in truth, that love isn't proven by comfort, but by compassion in the darkest moments. Richard learned that blindness wasn't losing sight, it was trusting the wrong hearts. Sophia's kindness taught him that wealth means nothing if your soul is poor, and little Gavin reminded them both that healing is slow, but real. In the end, faith, honesty, and love rebuilt what betrayal tried to destroy. If this story touched you, hit that subscribe button for more emotional tales from King's Folklore. And even if it didn't, come on, subscribe anyway, we'll win you over next time. Drop a comment, like the video, and let's keep the stories alive. Thanks for watching. Moral: true love doesn't need to be tested, it reveals itself in silence, through care, sacrifice, and truth.